Hello and welcome to The Take. I'm your host, Chesley McNeil. Each weekday, we're looking at stories, making headlines, and bringing experts from our community to give their take. Here's a look back at some of the top takes from this week and how those in the know are seeing those stories that impact you. All right, the summer travel season kicks off at the end of the month, and so far this year, there's been a lot of headlines about mid-air accidents and scary situations related to flying. Tell me about it, right? In January, the American Airlines jet and a military helicopter collided over the Potomac River. Since that deadly incident, there has been several high-profile incidents in the air, like the Delta plane crash that landed upside down on a runway in Toronto. Remember that? And just last month, a Delta flight from Orlando to Atlanta caught fire before taking off, forcing everyone on board to evacuate. And you see that fire right there. This all has a lot of people nervous about boarding flights. Here to talk about it is Dr. German Reyes, a psychiatrist with WellStar. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
All right. I reluctantly got on a plane this weekend, right? And so I know a lot of people probably are like me. You know, the Cleveland Clinic says that a fear of flying affects 25 million Americans. It's pretty common. Was that the case before all this stuff started happening?
That was the case before all this started happening. And something I always mention to patients who have that fear or who have anxiety in general is to always make sure that they're basing their beliefs in fact. So we have had a lot of high-profile incidents, like you mentioned, with air travel recently. But I was looking at the data just the other day, and in the first quarter of 2024, we actually had 173 some odd incidences, whereas in the 2025, we had 99. That's a significant drop in incidents. Mm-hmm. The difference really has been the high-profile cases that have been going on. So I always tell patients, let's look at the facts, because when we are dealing with anxiety, what's happening? We're dealing with the unknown. So if we can find some things that we can ground in fact, it starts to feel better. If we can focus on what's in our control, travel becomes a little bit easier. So
we almost have to kind of promote stories of success flights, right? More so than these high-profile flights. What really gets into people's heads when they hear these stories?
Absolutely. When you hear these stories, it can be very frightening. And to your point about promoting stories of success, I tell people, well, have you flown before? And, you know, many people, even with flying anxiety, have flown before. And I'm like, okay, what went right with that flight? What was going on? Hang on to that, right? Think about that. And then think about everything that made it easier to travel that day and repeat those efforts.
So what are ways people can manage this? Are we going to see an uptick in, what are the comfort pets that fly?
You may see an uptick in emotional support animals. I think the best way to start really managing it is by preparing for the flight, preparing for the travel. Anytime we go on a trip, preparation is the best thing you can do, because if you can feel a little bit of control in what's going on, then it becomes a little bit easier. So get to the airport earlier, right? Because invariably we've all had that experience where they change the terminal on us, or there's been something going on and the flight's delayed. Get there earlier so that you have time, you can relax, you can kind of focus. Breathing exercises are a phenomenal way for a person to really get, if they start to feeling panic, under control. Worst case scenario, if a person really does have that true form of panic, you know, they can talk to a psychiatrist like myself or their family care physician, and they can take a medicine with them to help really tamp down that anxiety and maybe help them actually just sleep through the flight rather than sitting there white knuckling it in terror, right?
That's absolutely right, and that's probably one of the first things I would do. Is there anything that we should not do if we're nervous about flying?
I would avoid consuming any other like illicit substances or alcohol, things that would make you disinhibited and could actually trigger an anxiety attack. I would try not to ever jump to conclusions and not focus on what's not fact-based. You know, don't focus on the negative. Try to stay focused on the positive and in the here and now, because again, with anxiety, you want to stay grounded in the moment. You don't want to get ahead of yourself. Most often anxiety is coming about from the future, right? Like, oh, all these unknowns. Well, I know what's going on right now. I know what shoes I have on right now. I know what tie I have on right now. So I'm going to focus on what's grounded in here and present.
There you go. I understand that totally. You start to go up a little bit. You're feeling good. Okay, this is great. And then you hit that first bump. And it's like, wait a minute, you know? And so
yeah, we start white knuckling it right there.
So I was focused on my shoes, focused on my tie. Everything's good. We're doing good. Thank you, Dr. Reyes. Really appreciate that, man. Some good insight for us.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys. Have a great morning, and I hope everybody has a lovely traveling season.
All right. Thanks so much.
We know some people use AI for a lot of things. It can help you plan a trip. How about deciding what to even eat for dinner? but would you let it buy things for you? We are talking about using your money. The credit card company Visa announced last week that it is partnering with AI developers to make this a reality. MasterCard is working on something similar. Visa CEO says the future of shopping could soon look like a lot of self-driving cars. So let's talk about it. Joining me now is Emory University professor, Professor Rajiv. Tell me much more about how this works. What does this even look like, and what kind of purchases could this be good for?
So, this is essentially an AI agent which is doing the shopping for you. So as we see AI being used by companies out there to advertise product for us, like if you're buying, say, a laptop on Amazon, and there's so many features that you are interested in, but your data on your computer knows you better. And as a result, you say, I want to buy a laptop. Rather than you going through a bunch of different pages, you essentially tell your AI assistant that buy me the best laptop. And as a result, it will find the best features for you for the right price based on the budget you set, and it'll place the order for you.
So does this mean that AI has direct access to your bank account?
So this is the thing, so we need to build trust first, and that's why the Visa and MasterCards are essentially credit card companies, and the AI will have access to your card number if those organizations allow you to spend with it, and they're going to provide some level of protection that in case you don't like the product, you should be able to return, right? So, or if there is anything wrong with the product, there's going to be zero liability kind of a setup in there. And that's what will build trust in these systems moving forward.
So how do you see it? Do you think that self-driving car description is actually the most accurate depiction to explain to people how this will work?
Absolutely. I mean, you're spot on by saying that. So in a self-driving car, you say, I want to go from A to B, and the car takes you. Here now, rather than you spending time doing all the searches and finding the right products for you, you tell the browser or the Chrome or your Apple Intelligence or your Copilot Plus PC that buy me this product, and it will buy it for you. Save all the time of searching through the thousands of products that are available online.
And so the life, as the Jetsons, it feels like it's definitely arrived, right? And you never thought that we would get to these places. And a lot of people are kind of warming up to it. I just recently kind of took my AI life to the next level with just how much you're willing to give information into this data. But you think about it, you feel like all your information is out there anyway. But people do want to know the steps that will be taken to make sure your money is safe. Would your money be safe?
So this is where I think, so my answer, the short answer is yes. It depends on the banks to build that trust. If banks or the credit card companies like Visa and MasterCard don't do the right thing in enabling the trust from the consumers, the AI systems it'll take much longer for the systems to be adopted again in the future. So they have to essentially provide you with enough guardrails on the purchasing limit, on what you want to buy, what you don't want to buy. And as a result, they will be able to provide that trust and safety for your money.
All right, really quick, do you think this is something we could realistically see in the near future?
Oh, absolutely. So my expectation is within the next 2 years, 20% of our shopping, or interaction with these e-commerce platforms will be done by AI. So within 2 years, because these systems, the amount of information that is flooded to us, that is given to us anytime we search something, it is much, much meaningless. Because we are finding these products that have no value for us, but they still show up in the recommendation system. Recommendation systems are essentially AI systems built by the e-commerce platforms or the website to give us something that they think we want. But we should have our own AI agent. So our agent negotiating with their agent that Rajiv doesn't want all that stuff. Rajiv wants this, and if you're going to give me this, I'm going to buy from you, otherwise I'm going to move on to the next person. So it's kind of like car buying, but now rather than you buying it, you hire an agent who will buy it for you.
All right, now I really feel like I'm really going to feel like my phone is connected to my brain. Rajiv, thank you so much for joining us today and kind of breaking all that down.
The city of Forest Park is launching a new program that looks to empower people facing homelessness and unemployment. It's called Elevate. Joining me here to talk more about it on the show is City Manager Ricky Clark Jr. Mr. Clark, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Glad to be with you this morning.
And we're glad to have you, man. Talk to me about Elevate, this program. How does it work?
Absolutely. It was built off the notion that poverty is expensive, compassion is cost effective. My team and I attended a meeting in what we learned was the only homeless shelter in Clayton County with 150 beds. And with the 150 beds, there were so many needs from the organization that as I left there with some of our senior staff members, it was a call to action. What can we really do as a local government to, in fact, stop this trend of our unhoused population? And so April 18th, with partners at Atlanta Technical College, Clayton State University, Clayton County Public Schools, as well as the Calvary Refuge Center, we launched officially Elevate, a pioneering program designed to empower individuals facing homelessness, unemployment, and underemployment.
So it's not just the unhoused piece of it, it's also unemployment as well, right?
Absolutely. Well, underemployed.
Underemployed. All right, talk to me about that. Is that a need in the area? Are you seeing that as a big need in the area?
Absolutely. So in our backyard, just last year, April of last year, we celebrated the Fort Gillum Logistics Center as the fastest, largest rapid redevelopment of a decommissioned military base in the world, with over a $1 billion impact in this community. And so we decided that we're going to make certain that we take care of those individuals who have called Forest Park home for a number of years and ensure that they have the proper skill sets to attract some of these local jobs that are here. Not just focusing on the fact that we have these big businesses, but focusing on how do we ensure that our individuals within this community have the proper skill sets to obtain some of these jobs.
What's some of the services that the city is going to provide for these folks?
So absolutely, it's wraparound services from workforce empowerment to advanced skill training, career placement and growth, comprehensive community support. It's a wraparound service. We also recognize through our partnership with the Atlanta Center for Self-Sufficiency that some of these individuals are going to have tailored needs, whether it's mental crises, whether it's the need for soft skills, the need for financial literacy. So really, we are looking to ensure that each individual that comes into this program office to participate in this first inaugural cohort of Elevate gets the services that they need to be able to attract some of these quality jobs within this community.
Gotcha. You just opened up an office, right, off of Forest Parkway? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And how's it going?
We felt it was best to put the office close to our Epic Center, which is where our city hall is located. We're in the process of building a 100,000 square feet city center, as well as renovating one of the most popular parks in this community. We felt that the center that we were going to use as a program office should be walkable to our residents. In addition to that, we're also talking with MARTA about providing critical transportation services for those within the program, as well as through partnerships with our local Chamber of Commerce.
All right, City Park Manager Ricky Clark Jr., thanks so much for joining us. And I love the look behind the desk. I'm going to have to get one of those myself, man. You look good.
Thank you.
Thanks for all that you're doing out there. All right.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. The city of Atlanta is also working to close a homeless encampment under the downtown connector. This is the encampment that runs along Pryor Street. Now, Mayor Andre Dickens says that the camps are not safe for people living there, the surrounding communities, or the public. Activists are calling the city to stop clearing out these clearouts. They're also calling to remove the leadership at some of Atlanta's leading homeless outreach organizations, including Partners for Home. It comes after the death of Cornelius Taylor. He was hit by a front loader while inside of a tent at an encampment on Wheat Street.
We got to stop the cycle. We can stop the cycle. It's just a matter of will.
The mayor's office says an outreach team is working to connect anyone who was displaced with the resources they would need. More than 130 Catholic cardinals are coming together from all over the world to take part in this highly secretive process. This is the largest conclave to ever take place. The cardinals will be barred from leaving or having any contact with the outside world, and they will vote until they choose a successor to Pope Francis. Joining us now is Father Roy Lee with the Catholic Archdiocese in Atlanta right here. Good morning, Father Lee.
Good morning to you. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Let's talk about it now. Let's talk about the significance of this moment for the Catholic Church and for the world.
Sure. These are exciting moments, as you well know, as you just mentioned, they are in conclave. And at this moment, we have, I think it's 133 cardinals that will be voting at this time. And we have 10 American cardinals who will be part of the voting process. We have our first African-American cardinal, who was our Archbishop in Atlanta, Welton Gregory, who is now a cardinal. He will be among those cardinals who will be putting in his vote for our 267th Pope since St. Peter. So these are exciting times.
Very exciting times. We saw a lot of Pope Francis as a progressive, even calling him the people's Pope. How do you think his legacy will influence the church for the next Pope?
Well, I think there will be a continuation. I think there were things, of course, he, as one man, couldn't solve all of the challenges. He is a symbol of unity for the church. And of course, this new Pope will have his plate full in terms of the many issues, challenges, and concerns in the church today. There are a litany of things dealing with, the women's position in the church, the LGBTQ plus community, dealing with the whole financial challenge at the Vatican itself, dealing with the liberals, conservatives, the vernacular versus the Latin Mass. So there's a slew of things when you think about it, that this man is going to embark upon a task that's going to be monumental.
Yeah, you mentioned the first African-American cardinal. We talk about Gregory, who served here in Atlanta for 14 years. What do you think he's going to bring to the discussion?
Well, I think he's going to bring not only the American issues and concerns. Wilton has traveled the world, so he's had the chance and opportunity to listen to the various voices throughout the world. And I think he really understands what the issues and concerns, not only in America, but the world today. Yeah. So I think he's going to bring all of that to the table. Yes.
Gotcha. You personally, what would you like to see in the new leader of the church?
Well, it's really, it's very difficult because we never thought Pope Francis would be the one at the time. And I don't have a particular, I just know that the Holy Spirit has already chosen the Pope, and the cardinals are now in conclave to figure out what is the Holy Spirit saying. And so right now, we're looking for a man who is going to be able to unify not only the church itself, but bring some interfaith, ecumenism, bringing people from different perspectives of the world together, so that we can not only dialogue together, but we can work together for justice, peace, love, equality, all those wonderful attributes that reflect who God is. That's his role. Yeah. He is a symbol and a sign of unity for us. And so he's got that task, and hopefully we can work with him with that task.
Lastly, your thoughts on whether this will be a long decision, or you think this will be quick? They'll set up that white smoke quick.
Looking at the history, that's a good question. Looking at the history of the last several popes, it looks like statistically, it looks like they were able to decide in like a couple days, like 3 days or so. And it looks like the word is out saying it's going to be a short decision, and we'll see. But looking at, as I said before, the last several popes, it looks like it's not going to be a very long process. Yeah. So we pray that in the next week or so, we're going to be sitting here again talking about the new man and looking at his background and looking at his vision and understanding where he's going to take us. Right.
Well, certainly we'll invite you on and get your thoughts on the new Pope as well. If it takes place, whether it's a short one or if it's a long one, we'll have you on. All right?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Father Lee. Appreciate you joining us today. All right, as we get ready to honor moms, it's the big time weekend, right? Many families are weighing the option of the cost to raise a child in today's economy. From daycare to diapers, the financial burden on parents is reaching all new heights. Our Jonathan Martin joins us now with a closer look as part of our Affording Atlanta series. Jonathan, welcome back to the show.
Hey, always good to be here with you this morning, Chesley.
All right, let's talk about it, man. How much of an increase are we talking about? How much does it cost to raise a child these days?
All right, well, let me tell you, first of all, a disclaimer, I am not a parent, but these numbers did seem pretty high to me. In this year, 2025, it costs $19,000 or more in Georgia to raise a child, a small child. When you look over the course of 18 years, that number is all the way up, Chesley, to $200,000 over 18 years. That doesn't even include college. And if that number seems high, it is pretty high. It's gone up about 14% in just the last 2 years. So a lot of people are feeling the numbers, they are feeling the cost right now.
Man, that's pretty high. Now, all my kids are grown, so I'm thinking about this like, whoa, it never cost me that much. What would you say the biggest expenses are for parents?
Well, you probably know this, Chesley, raising young kids at one point that, it's the food, it's the clothing, but perhaps the biggest expense we're hearing from most parents is childcare. We've done a number of stories here at 11Alive about these soaring costs of childcare, and a lot of parents say that is their biggest expense, especially if you have more than one child, making sure they have the childcare that they need. And a lot of parents say it really, really is making their finances really tight.
Wow. You got a chance to speak to several mothers, right? How are they saying that they're making it work?
Well, they're doing it in different ways. We spoke to a couple mothers. One told me that she's really getting serious about a budget, not making those last-minute stops at Chick-fil-A. Hey, we're eating at home. No more eating out. Another mother tells me that she is really having to sit down with her daughter and make some serious choices about extracurricular activities. We no longer can do ballet and piano and gymnastics. We're having to choose one now, and really, like we said, just getting serious about the budget.
Wow. What advice did experts have for parents who are overwhelmed financially?
First of all, as I kind of alluded to, the budget is the big thing. Looking at where every dollar you're spending is going and also anticipating some of the costs. Of course, it's graduation season. We just got finished with prom season. So if you know you're going to have an extra expense for your child, budget for that, knowing that it may come up. Also, pay down debt so you can have more disposable income to spend on those things that you need and some of those things that your kids may want. And also, Chesley, a big thing is to look for help out there, not just government assistance, but we in our story profiled a group called Hope Inc. They are a nonprofit here in the city of Atlanta, specifically working with single mothers who are pursuing a college degree. That group offers assistance with housing, with food, with childcare. So a lot of times it's just about looking at the help that's out there to see if they can help you meet the needs, because it is really tight for a lot of parents right now.
Wow, that proverb of it takes a village to raise a child is ringing true today.
Oh, certainly. And sometimes, even things, getting secondhand toys, getting secondhand cribs or bassinets, things like that, calling your friends. It's a time where, every dollar really counts for a lot of people.
Yeah, I hear your phone ringing. Uncle Jonathan?
I have a brother, and I try to do what I can.
Got it, Jonathan. Thanks so much. AAA's new report shows that Georgia residents aren't letting the economy slow them down from their summer travel plans this year. 58% of Georgians plan to take a summer trip. That's up just 1% from last year, despite the economic climate. The survey also shows 39% of Georgia residents plan to travel a little more, while 22% say they're going to take fewer trips. That's mostly due to economic concerns. And where do people plan on going? Well, AAA says that 55% plan to hit the beach, right? That's where you want to go, get some rest and relaxation. If you're driving to your destination, here's something that's going to impact you. Oil prices are down to their lowest levels in years. That means gas is pretty cheap right now. That's good. Here to talk more about it is Patrick DeHaan of Gas Buddy. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Morning, Chesley. Thanks for having me.
All right. How low are these oil prices?
Well, as you mentioned, slipping below $60 a barrel for the first time since the pandemic. All of this really part and parcel because OPEC has suddenly ratcheted up production in a surprising way. In fact, for the month of June, they're increasing production another 400,000 barrels a day against the backdrop of economic uncertainty. All of that has pushed oil prices down. As you mentioned, gas prices also down considerably. In fact, the average day in Atlanta, just $2.89 a gallon. That's 55 cents a gallon lower than last year. So to your point, those heading to the beach are not going to be spending as much to fill their tanks. That's a theme that we can expect to continue for much of this summer.
Nice. Now, you already mentioned that we're below $3 a gallon. Is that the case nationwide as we travel to different places?
Well, the national average just a little bit higher. Georgia tends to be a little bit below the national average, but it is possible that in the weeks ahead, the national average could also join the sub $3 club. For now, it stands at about $3.11 a gallon. 26 states where you can find average prices below $3. I do think the number of states below $3 will likely grow in the weeks ahead. The one thing holding gas prices up right now is the fact that refineries are still finishing maintenance and inventories of gasoline have been declining. Once that maintenance gets done, I do expect potentially even more gas price declines over the summer.
Yeah. Now, we said that typically the summer blend for us is the highest, right? Rather than the winter blend. The summer blend is a little bit higher, right?
Yeah, that's right. And typically right around March and April is when we see a peak in price. It's not usually in the summer, so it's already potential that we've already peaked for the year. Now, of course, there's economic developments that we'll have to keep an eye on, but usually maximum pressure on gas prices doesn't occur in the summer. But as that transition to summer gasoline is now done, it's usually culminates with the transition, rising demand, and refinery maintenance, which is now moving beyond its time.
So if we hit our peak, we can expect it to stay pretty steady, I'm hoping, right? Is it always like a catastrophe that causes it to rise unexpectedly?
Well, it certainly can be. Now, OPEC, if they reverse course suddenly in the months ahead, which would be unusual, that could cause prices to go up. But the other thing we'll be watching for come the summer is hurricane season. Of course, hurricanes can make a big impact on refineries. And if there aren't refineries producing and refining oil, there's going to be less gasoline, and that could send gas prices up. So we'll watch for that all summer long.
Hate to bring politics into it, but is there any way politics can play a role on it?
Well, certainly. One of the reasons I mentioned that gas prices are lower is because of the economic uncertainty brought on by some of the tariffs and trade wars that are developing now. Now, if those tend to ease without the tariffs being implemented, it could actually mean higher gas prices because there would be more hope for the economy to grow if there are no tariffs. If the tariffs are ratcheted up, it could mean an economic slowdown, which could mean lower gas prices.
All right. So, yeah, if you're planning that trip, now is a good time to kind of plan it out, I guess, right? Hopefully things will stay nice and steady, right? That's what you said.
Hopefully things will stay nice and steady. I think it's going to be the cheapest summer, though, since 2021. So all in all, not a bad year to hit the road.
And that is a good sign. I mean, nobody's really expecting that, especially as we're hearing about prices on other things really rising. To hear the gas would stay steady is a good thing. Patrick, really appreciate that. The White House's overall strategy on tariffs is looking to impact the silver screen as Trump's administration is proposing a 100% tariff on movie production overseas. Here now to talk about how this would impact the film industry in Georgia is Darius Evans, co-president of the Georgia Production Partnership. Darius, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Hey, man, good to see you. When we talk to me about tariffs, 100% tariff on movie production, what does that look like for us?
So that's the challenge, right? No one knows what it looks like to try to put a tariff on intellectual property. It's never been done before. Typically, tariffs are on goods that are exported or imported into a country. And so since this is a service and it's actually culture that's being exported, we're not sure how a tariff will actually work on intellectual property.
What's your best summary of what this could look like? How do you see it playing out?
So there's a couple of different scenarios for how it could play out. It could be a tax on the production companies that go overseas to produce these projects, or the production companies that are already overseas that are producing projects, or it can be a tariff on the distributors that buy the content. It could be a tax or a tariff on the streamers and the theaters that buy these and display these content pieces. So we're not sure, but either way, I believe that the onus is going to be on the end consumer, right? So at the end of the day, the consumer is going to end up paying more either for tickets to see the films in theaters or for their streaming services.
How much of the movie industry is done here in Georgia?
How much?
Yeah. Say?
In the past 3 years, our biggest year, we did about $4 billion,
wow.
A little over $4 billion in direct spend in the state.
Jeez. Now, compared to other places, I mean, is California still the leader or New York City?
California is still the leader currently. During the pandemic, though, Georgia, of course, we were the first state to come back online after the pandemic, and so we were number one. So we go back and forth between number one with LA and New York.
Gotcha. Now describe how the industry, it trickles down to the business sector.
Yes. So our industry is supported heavily by small businesses here in the state. Is one of the biggest employers in the state now. And so something like a tariff, which we're already experiencing a bit of a downturn in the industry. And so a tariff on top of that will be devastating, I think, to a lot of the businesses that support the industry in the state. And we're talking about businesses like caterers, we're talking about businesses like florists, you know, people who aren't necessarily cameras or lights, but they are adjacent to the business and they provide a lot of services and goods to the industry.
Is there any way, once this goes into effect, let's say this goes into effect, is there any way to try to circumvent it or make better of the situation?
To make better or to circumvent, it's tough to circumvent. It's going to be really tough to enforce in the first place, right? Because we aren't importing a good or exporting a good. So you can't necessarily scan something as it gets on a plane or on a ship. Right, so that's one of the first things, being able to enforce it. So, in order to get around it, I don't know. We'd have to see what the requirements are. We'd have to see what the checks and balances are with the tariff on something like content. So yeah, it remains to be seen.
Yeah. Your last question for you: your best guess on whether or not this will take place?
So my best guess is that what this is really a conversation starter, right? It's going to give us an opportunity to really address some of the issues that we really do see in the industry, with a lot of the business now going overseas because other countries are they're imposing, like, not tariffs, but credits, tax credits, tax incentives. And so I think it's a welcome conversation to be had about how we can be more competitive on the world market. And I think that a credit, some sort of a tax credit or tax incentive, would be a whole lot more effective to getting the companies, production companies, and the distributors to do more business here in the U.S.
Gotcha. Darius Evans, thanks so much for joining us, and thanks so much for your insight. Already this year, TSA has intercepted nearly 100 guns. The vast majority of those were loaded, if you can believe it or not. Despite that statistic, how often are these cases resulting in any actual legal repercussions? Joining us now is 11Alive News investigator Savannah Leven. She's joining us now on The Take. And Savannah, you looked into this, and what did you find?
Yeah, well, the answer is not often, Chesley. We found of the nearly 90 times TSA has intercepted a gun at Atlanta's airport in the first 4 months of 2025, only twice did someone actually face charges. Now, this is despite the airport and the police issuing a warning last year that anyone who gets caught with a gun at TSA will be arrested and charged with reckless conduct. We found in the vast majority of these cases, people just have their guns and ammunition returned to them. They're basically told to either hand it off to someone or put it in their car and continue on with their travel with no charges.
Whoa, why are they not arresting folks? Did you find that out?
Yes, so they said it mostly comes down to state law. This is what police tell me. Updates to state law in the last decade do allow for guns to be carried in the main parts of Georgia airports, anywhere, of course, before TSA security. So in the parking lots, the baggage claim areas, all the public spots of the airport, basically before security. And as of 2022, you don't even need a license anymore to carry a gun. So Airport Commander Major David Wilson tells me APD has opted to just not file charges if officers believe it was a true accident.
It goes back to really state law, and so it's not really, we don't have discretion about one way or the other. We have to follow the state law. In other states, it's different. So, you know, you might go to some other place and they're locking you up.
So they're not being charged. Are there any other repercussions?
Yeah, they're not getting off totally scot-free, right? TSA does slap offenders with fines anywhere from $3,000 to $15,000. Now, that's obviously a pretty wide range. How much you pay depends on a lot of different factors. So, for instance, if you're a first-time offender, you've never done this before, police determined it was an accident, weapon wasn't loaded, your fine's likely to be closer in that $3,000 range. Still, that's definitely not cheap. And if you have TSA pre-check, that will be taken away for the next 5 years, Chesley.
All right, what about background checks? Are they running background checks on people who are carrying these guns through TSA?
Yeah, so that is a part of their investigation. Police do run the gun through something called ACIC to make sure it's not stolen, to make sure the traveler isn't a convicted felon, who of course would not even be allowed to have a gun in the first place. But Chesley, we found at least 2 instances this year where that system, ACIC, was down and police returned the gun to the traveler anyway. Here's a clip of some of that body camera footage that we obtained.
ACIC is down. I'm sure it's fine. You're not going to get anything back for it, or no. You're not even going to run it, or?
You're good to go.
So you will hear what APD said about that and why in 2 cases police did decide to file charges. What happened there in this full investigation, Chesley.
Wow, can't wait to see it. I mean, a little bit shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I'm already a little bit intimidated by some of these airplane crashes and incidents, and now you're telling me people can probably get away with carrying a gun.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear what Atlanta police have to say about this. We obviously interviewed them for this story, and they said that there's a lot of different factors that are understandable, but definitely maybe not what a lot of people would expect.
May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it seems that one thing has been keeping us awake at night: anxiety over money issues. New data from the bank rate shows that more than 2 in 5 American adults say money, at least on occasion, negatively impacts their mental health. The most prominent culprit is inflation and rising prices. That percentage is the highest it's been in 3 years. It also found that those who stress out over money are 3 times more likely to have paid a late bill over the past month than those who say money isn't impacting their mental health at all. Here back with us is my good friend, Morgan Ward. Good to see you, Morgan. She's the assistant professor of marketing at Emory, whose primary focus is on consumer behavior, and talks a lot about my behavior. All right, Morgan, help us out. What's your first take here on those stats, and why are a good chunk of us seeing the stress over our pocketbooks?
Yeah, it's the #1 stressor for adults right now, actually. And actually that's been pretty persistent throughout the last few years. There's so many reasons that contribute to this right now. It's tariffs, it's the uncertainty around tariffs, it's the uncertainty around interest rates. We have groceries going up, people have long-term concerns like retirement, paying back student loans, the ability to invest in a home. Then we have the stressors of little children and aging parents. I mean, people are so pulled in many directions monetarily, and then of course you're uncertain if you're going to have a job, maintain a job, be able to get a job. So consumers and just people in general are scared.
Wow.
They're nervous.
Yeah, it does seem to dominate the news today. Do you think it's more about, and you mentioned a lot of things there, is it more about the money we have and trying to hold on to it, or the money that we don't have trying to get?
Honestly, I think there's elements of both of those things. I think that anticipation is where real anxiety comes from because we have a lack of control. But people are worried just about day-to-day expenses as well. When you see prices increasing and see that prices are going to continue increasing in ways that you can't control, that causes more anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's all around us. We hear it all the time. How can people find some comfort and calm in this blitz of what's going on as far as money is concerned?
You know, there's a bunch of different ways. And the #1 thing is, what can you control? Can you cut back on luxuries? Instead of going on a vacation to Europe, maybe you do something more local or wait for a year. Are you tracking your own expenses? Are you thinking about things like, well, is my bill for my phone particularly high? Can I change carriers? What about my insurance company? There's lots of free information about budgeting online and also some free tools as well. So you can start thinking about where you're putting your money and if you can plan that differently, at least in the short term when there's so much uncertainty.
Yeah, I know money is probably the root of a lot of arguments in the household and so on and so on. Maybe if you're not on the same page, what are some of the tips you have for folks just trying to survive out there?
For basic survival, I think the #1 thing is tracking. A lot of people just don't know where their money is going, and we spend money often unconsciously. Like, you aren't allocating money for that thing you just happened to buy at the grocery store, that extra little thing, or the thing you ran into for CVS. So trackability is so key. But also, as you said, oftentimes people are sharing money. So understanding where other people that you are sharing money with are allocating and prioritizing. And I think that's really important, is that communication as well.
They say money can't buy you love. I mean, should we focus on that more?
Yeah, you should never buy love with money.
Certainly we'll go broke, right?
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Morgan, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your take on this situation, which is a very serious situation. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Bye.
The new Pope addressed the crowds of thousands Thursday outside of St. Peter's in Italian and Spanish, but not in English. He'd offered his blessings for those who know him for his guidance and leadership for the Catholic Church.
I should also like this greeting of peace to enter our hearts and your families, and to all those people, wherever they are, all peoples throughout the world. Peace be with you.
Pope Leo plans to deliver his first blessing Sunday at noon. He will then hold an audience with the media on Monday in the Vatican Auditorium. Joining us now on this historic conclave is Professor Susan Reynolds with the Emory School of Theology. So glad you are joining us. I know you're excited.
Great to be with you this morning.
Yeah, excited, right?
Very excited and stunned.
To say historic is very overwhelming, right? How shocked are you about this election?
My jaw was on the floor. I simply could not believe it. The idea that we have a North American Pope, something that people said since, they've said it's not possible, truly, that America, the Pope should not come from the United States of America. America has enough political power. No, we will not have a U.S. Pope. I'm shocked.
I think we all are. Nobody kind of saw this coming here. Talk to me about Leo and his ideology.
Sure. So he is somebody who is very trusted by Pope Francis. I think we can expect him to be somebody who will sort of continue Pope Francis's vision for the church and also his vision for the institution of the Vatican itself. We got a sense of this during his opening address yesterday, but we can also tell this from his biographical details. Although he was born in Chicago, he spent the majority of his ministry in Peru, working in Peru. He's also now been in Rome for a very long time. So he's a transnational figure. He's North American. He's spent a great deal of time. In fact, he's a naturalized citizen of Peru as well. He has a great deal of experience within the Vatican. He speaks multiple languages. He's in some way kind of a global citizen that I think will serve the church well in being a bridge builder and a source of unity.
Susan, try to take us into the conclave a little bit. Like, what was the thinking? Now, this seemingly to us may have been a very quick vote. What was the thinking behind the cardinals in naming this new pope?
Well, that's a source of real speculation, and you're right. It did seem to be a shorter conclave. There was some thought that perhaps this conclave would take longer because so many of the cardinals were new to the process, but also were new to one another. It's a far more global college of cardinals than we've ever seen before. It was the largest conclave that has ever happened in history by far. And so there was a sense that for a number of reasons, this could be a longer process. They might have trouble reaching a kind of consensus because unlike, let's say, after the death of John Paul II, there was no obvious successor. Mm-hmm. We were all very surprised to see white smoke early yesterday afternoon. I think that even though Provost, now Pope Leo, he was on a number of lists, but I don't think he was really high on anyone's list, primarily because of the fact that he was born in the United States. But in fact, to put it very baldly, he checks a number of boxes. He has administrative experience within the Vatican. He was somebody who Pope Francis promoted and trusted very much. He has pastoral experience. He has missionary experience. He's somebody who is really seen as a figure of solidarity with the margins, particularly for the years and years that he spent in Peru. He has the linguistic experience. He's a very diplomatic person. He's seen as a leader among his peers. I think in a certain way, when you take a step back, it's very possible that the Cardinals saw him quite early on as a real contender.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Tell us, why hasn't there not been a pope from the United States up until now?
Well, it's a great question. The United States is a very young church. I mean, when you think about a 2,000-year institution, Catholicism has been in the Americas for half a millennium, 500 years. In the United States as a country, I mean, United States is a young country in the course of the world, and Catholicism here in the U.S. Was really a profound minority. The United States was and in many ways kind of continues to be by default, in many people's minds, a sort of white Protestant country. Catholics in many parts of the United States were persecuted quite significantly. You know, Catholics set up an entirely parallel school system, the Catholic school system, which is the largest private school system in the entire world, in part because they were quite literally shut out of public schools for a long time, particularly during these waves of Catholic immigration from Europe. And so Catholicism has always been sort of a funny animal here in the United States. And on the global scale, it's seen as also kind of an anomaly, something interesting, because Catholicism has always had to exist in this very pluralistic context within the United States. Mm-hmm. And so the way that American Catholics are, particularly in public life, in political life, is different than, for example, in Europe. It was also seen that America just simply on a global stage had, at least in the 20th century, quite a lot of power. Mm-hmm. And to give an American the power of the papacy, while America already possessed such a profound amount of power on the global stage, was sort of too high a concentration of power. And I think that's why Prevost, if it was going to be an American, it had to be Prevost, because he is sort of an insider outsider. Of course, as we've said many times, he is from the United States. He's from the south side of Chicago. I found the interviews with his brothers to be very dear, mm-hmm. and his White Sox fandom. But he spent, really the majority of his adult life outside of the country. You couldn't have somebody who's such a political insider, a Cardinal Dolan, for example, of New York. He's too close to the American political machine. Gotcha. But Prevost is outside of it. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. All right, Susan Reynolds, thank you so much for your insight. I could talk to you all day about this and get your insight on it. Thank you for joining us throughout this process as well. Appreciate you.
Happy to be here.
Oh, my final take. We made it. It's Mom's Day weekend, and hopefully you got your plans in place for your favorite girl. The spoiler all up there, right? Although Mom's Day is meant to pamper the girl, the hardest working person in the household, the truth is, it may not be all that it's hyped up to be. Hear me out. My top 5 reasons why Mom's Day is not the greatest day for her. Number 5, gifts made out of popsicle sticks and cardboard and construction paper are cute, but it's not practical. It doesn't last, you know what I mean? Number 4, some moms are still receiving household appliances that really aren't for her. It's for everybody else in the house to enjoy. Number 3, let's be real about this. The day never really lives up to her expectations. Mom is hard to satisfy, but maybe that's a good thing. It makes us step up our game each year. Number 2, let's face it, breakfast in bed made by kids, very nice thought, very much appreciated, but is it gonna taste good? Likely not. I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth. Last one, number 1. In the mind of a child, Mom's Day is just a normal day. They're still going to call your name about 50,000 times. Mom, 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 mom. Regardless of all that, I hope you have a great Mother's Day and a great weekend. You should probably get about 5 more days. Have a good one.